may be the image you have of the Ontario Provincial Police, highway traffic work. Here at the Downsview Detachment in Metropolitan Toronto, with Highway 401 and some of the busiest traffic in Canada, that's a true image. But the Ontario Provincial Police is a lot more than just that. It is, for instance, this.
And it's this. And this, too. It can be detail work behind a desk or being very active in the outdoors. Work for the Ontario Provincial Police can be all these things and many more too. Some of it very visible to the public, but actually a great deal more stands behind the uniform and the equipment. It's a career that attracts a great variety of people from a wide range of backgrounds, but no matter where from, for every one of them, a position in the OPP these days has to start here in downtown Toronto at the Training and Development Centre for the Force. Since 1929, from all over Ontario, recruits have been receiving special OPP training for their own individual reasons.
My name is David Hurlbut. I'm from Brockville, Ontario. I worked at Automatic Electric where we made switching equipment for telephone systems. My interests and hobbies are I raise and train retrievers, and I ran a rock group for the last 5 years in Brockville. I was a member of the auxiliary OPP in Brockville, and I gained my interest from that.
My name is Judy Halsman, and I'm from Belleville, and I've just completed a course in lab technology at the Belleville General Hospital, and I enjoy water skiing and snow skiing and any kind of active sport. And why I joined the OPP as well, I wanted a interesting and active career.
Bill Frechette, I'm from Barrie. I'm interested in sports of all kinds. My previous job was a supervisor of a menswear in a retail clothing store, and I chose the OPP for many reasons, one of them being the variety of work.
I'm Nancy Grossmith, and I've lived in Toronto all my life. My previous job was with Towers Department Stores as a store investigator for 2 years. And my special interest, just any kind of outdoor activity. And I joined the OPP because I was interested in police work.
But for whatever reason, these recruits have come to the OPP and the college, this year's class, by the way, including women for the first time. Within this compound, they start not just a new job, but a whole new way of life. There are basic personal changes ahead for everyone.
My name is Staff Superintendent McPherson. I'm the Director of Training for the Ontario Provincial Police. And what you have begun this morning, of course, is the first of a possible 35 years.
Through the very nature of its role, the police department is a quasi-military operation. Commissioned officers and NCOs, the language of law enforcement, for instance. It's all necessary because of the vast job that is faced by the Ontario Police Force. Summed up by the Commissioner for the province, Harold Graham, this way.
We are responsible by statute to police all the areas which do not have municipal or regional policemen. As a result, we do all the rural areas plus many towns such as Muskoka area, Bracebridge, Huntsville, and Gravenhurst. We do the same function in Ontario as the RCMP does in every other province except Quebec.
So many people in Ontario really just aren't aware of the size of the province and the job to be done.
Well, we cover from Lake Ontario here in Toronto right up to the Arctic Circle, and from Cornwall to the Manitoba border, which is a distance of about 1,500 miles.
About 1,000 miles north and south.
That's about right. 412,000 square miles, actually.
If it comes 9:20 and you're still in the front lounge, you should ask yourself, why am I still here? Okay? Because it's now 9:20, and I should be moving to my second place, which is right next door in the games room. And there you will be photographed twice. You will have one photograph which will be the official one for your warrant card, your identification card. So we want the eyes open, please. You'll have a second photograph, which will be for the purposes of a press release.
Hey, that's about it, yeah.
Thank you.
That one over there,
In this initial training for recruits, before the class goes out into the field, each very filled day starts at 8 o'clock with breakfast, on time. And each morning at the college, from 830 hours to 855, you're on the drill square. Mr. or Ms., you're in the police department now.
Recruit A training is 6 weeks long. At completion of Recruit A, you will return to your detachment, where you will again be in a working position with your coach officer for a minimum of 6 weeks, probably longer than that, before you return to the Ontario Police College for Recruit B, an additional 6 weeks. It will be our hope and our objective to complete that training for you in the space of 12 months.
When the college graduates leave their classrooms to go out and police those 412,000 square miles of Ontario that wait for them, they'll find much of their work to be done in remote areas. In those areas, the Ontario Provincial Police now operate 2 of the latest turboprop Beaver aircraft, capable of carrying a mixture of people and equipment, not only on a rush basis to centers within easy access, but to the new country of our province, the country just being opened up for development and policing through the use of the latest and best of equipment. This is the land in which the Ontario Constable is the law, the help if needed, the official contact with more southerly developed areas. In this country, stretching far to the north, to James Bay and even the Hudson Bay districts, to the Polar Circle, the OPP is also developing systems of native policing, involving the people from the areas in which they live to maintain social standards and laws. But the demands of an Ontario policeman can't be placed in any one category. There is the long-distance job. There's also the work required in, well, District 16, with headquarters at the head of the lakes, a responsibility that involves just about everything from a professional and a geographical point of view. There is, of course, a Thunder Bay Municipal Police Department in the city. But from the OPP DHQ on the outskirts of the city, a total of 32 officers and men worked from the detachment itself. There's a 26-person district support staff and men in 13 different smaller detachments spotted throughout the area. All 179 of these officers and men, plus civilians, are under the command of Superintendent R.L. Bender.
Let's never forget that these detachments function as a small police department of their own. And we're more or less here to serve them, too, not only administer them. The policemen even not so many years ago, in a place like Red Lake or Central Patricia. I spent some years in Red Lake, but a man was particularly relied upon there. There were very few other government agencies there, and people always turned to the OPP for all of their service or guidance, and we didn't turn them down.
And out 160 miles or so west of Thunder Bay on the Trans-Canada Highway, one of those smaller OPP detachments, actually in another district of the force, at Ignace, Ontario, a CPR division point, pulpwood operations in the area, some new mines now back in the bush, and the local police, the Ontario Provincial Police, in the town. We talked with the 2 constables working the weekend shifts.
Most of the people in the town are quite friendly. It's a small community, and you do get to know just about every individual on a personal basis if you're in a detachment any length of time.
In a small town, then, does that get in the way, or does it create any great problems, you think, in enforcing the laws? You obviously have to with people you know on a social basis.
Well, certainly it does cause some problems, because there are those that feel that just because they know you on a first-name basis that they shouldn't they shouldn't be disciplined or charged. But most people are quite realistic, and they realize that you do have a job to do, and you're doing it as best you can.
Does policing on your own, then, in a situation like this or in a smaller detachment, is that what appeals to you, do you think?
Well, you certainly learn a lot more, and if a fellow does wish to get ahead at any point in his career, he has to have a general knowledge of police work, and to get it quickly. The small detachment, I feel, is the best place to get it.
Which is the worst, do you think, the mosquitoes or the snow? Or the black flies?
Well, I guess you get used to it all. Well, as a rule, it would probably average out that you might spend approximately 3 hours on traffic detail, such as patrolling through your detachment area. But most of the time, rest of the time of the shift might be spent just patrolling in the township itself, or else heading up north, possibly on compassionate messages. Or
that's something I was going to ask you about, compassionate messages. Now, just can you describe that to us?
Well, compassionate message would be such as if someone who is not normally in this area is up here as a tourist or up here working in the area, because we do have a lot of transient employees in the area, some sickness or death has resulted in their family, then they contact our office, and we are dispatched to try and locate the subject.
Oh, we receive quite a few of them each year. I suppose a good percentage from Americans, their spouses, etc., are up here fishing in the area, and deaths in the family, illnesses, or overdue persons. We have quite a few each year that way.
So police work is a lot more than just police work.
Definitely.
Or just traffic work.
Yes, up in here. This is more interesting. You're into everything. You never can tell what you're going to be into next day. Natural death, or theft, or willful damage, or even just assisting anybody.
Thunder Bay, 17370.
17370.
1029, Ontario's issue. Frank Young Adam, 532. Frank Young Adam, 532.
10-4, standby.
This is CPIC in action. CPIC. That stands for the Canadian Police Information Center. From anywhere in the province, a man can radio a request to a contact point for information on a vehicle or a person. The request is typed and fed into the main computer in Ottawa, and within seconds, that answer and information is back to the constable anywhere in the field.
17370, Thunder Bay.
Thunder Bay, 17370, go ahead.
17370, negative file, Frank Young Adam, 532.
Thunder Bay, 17370, 10-4.
The man out here on the job, in many cases, is the representative of the government of Ontario. He is, after all, a provincial constable. That's a tradition within the force, because this constable does represent Ontario. This is the part of the province where they refer to Toronto as down east. And most men working in these areas would rather not move down east, because they like the challenge of policing and living in what amounts to a near frontier.
Many detachments where there are only 3 or 4 or 5 men in remote places, mining towns. And this is where you really had community policing, because there were so many other agencies that were not represented at the... But we even gave driver's tests. We registered births and deaths in places like that. And they can get involved with communities much more easily here, because the communities are smaller. You're more of an individual here. And people, it's nice to be wanted and needed, and we are. And I think with that in mind, your job is that much easier.
One of the many places the OPP may be needed in Ontario's provincial parks. All those hundreds of square miles of parkland, with now their thousands and thousands of visitors, are the responsibility of the Ontario Police. This is Kakabeka Falls Provincial Park, an old Indian and fur trader portage spot on the way to Atikokan and Fort Francis. And that familiar black and white symbol of the law is there, if needed. But back to the city and that area and the job, in which the Ontario Provincial Police Department cooperates and works with other police forces, township or municipal. That help can amount to a number of things, such as a scuba team. With a scuba man like Corporal Brown here, he's within the city. That would be in cooperation with the Thunder Bay Police Department.
That's right. We assist any municipal police department in our area with by the use of the dog, the scuba team, our boat, which we have here as well, or the snow vehicles.
Corporal Brown, he's just come off a dive in the park, right?
That's right, yes. He was away all last week.
Now, what were they doing?
They were searching for 3 Americans that were believed drowned in the lake there.
But it wouldn't just be for bodies, of course. It would be other things.
Oh, no. Stolen property is, it's quite common to search for stolen property. Again, for, it may be a vehicle that ran off the road into the lake, and they'd go down to assist in the recovery of a vehicle.
Mount Forest, Ontario, near Guelph, is the center for training provincial police canines, but the dogs work all over the province, and this is just outside Barrie. Corporal, how old are the dogs?
Well, we like to start them about 1.5 years, and well, right now we have dogs up to 10 years of age in service.
Is that what they would do, search work?
Yeah, that's their prime purpose, search and rescue type things, or criminals that have escaped, or, you know, this type of work.
Every one of the dogs in the officer's home. Yours lives with you, Constable?
Yes, he does. They like to have them with a family kind of animal to people relation type of thing, so they're with the handlers at all times pretty well.
Gets along well with the kids?
Yes, he does.
Are they vicious in any way?
Well, when we get them, we look for a dog that has a real stable temperament. That wouldn't, a lot of people would think we'd get dogs that would bite people, and this isn't the case. We make them, we get a very stable dog initially, and then we make them suit our purpose. If the case would arise where we'd have to send the dog after a criminal that might be shooting at us or something, then we have to have a dog that'll do that.
In recent years, we've become aware of the Ontario Provincial Police aircraft patrols. 6 planes chartered by the force patrol a total of 1,759 miles of highway in the province. You can tell the highways that are under aircraft surveillance. They're the ones with very precisely measured and painted T marks every quarter of a mile. And, by the way, every detail of this air-to-ground traffic enforcement now has withstood the tests of the courts.
AC77213, is that the correct vehicle stop?
AC77213, that is the correct vehicle stop, the blue one. Charge the driver 90 miles an hour at 130. 90 miles an hour at 130, that's the correct vehicle stop.
10-4 line.
And I don't know what it just...
We've seen underwater men at work, but not only do such specialized constables work throughout the year, their training, maintenance of standards, and generally becoming familiar with new equipment is a month-in, month-out process. These classes have gathered at Geneva Park near Orillia, not only to provide a classroom situation for lectures, but to exchange practical information gained from day-to-day experience, and in this case, to evaluate and learn about the Ontario Provincial Police helicopters. They're the latest additions to the equipment for a lone man on the job, a detachment that needs further help as quickly as possible. Search and rescue is a major part of their job, and with the overlapping of our seasons, those emergencies can't be confined to any one time of the year any longer. But helicopters are so adaptable, there are few areas in which they can't be a vital aid. They're just one of the latest pieces of equipment that help tie it all together, land, sea, and air. Despite its size, Ontario now just doesn't have many inaccessible places left. Search and rescue, working with divers, coordinating work on the water. Just some of the demands upon the machines and the OPP pilots. But there are also emergencies like tracking automobiles being pursued, airlifting injured or seriously ill people. In all ways, being able to get there now. The tactical work of the helicopter teams goes on all the time. We maybe only hear of the operations when they make the newscasts or are splashed across the front page of the newspapers. Particularly in the bigger metropolitan centers, the Ontario Provincial Police helicopters aren't seen much in the city skies. But in so much of our province, they can be the only machine available for contact with the outside world. In the vacation country of Ontario, you may be aware of the marine role of the OPP, but even with 10 launches and 60 skiffs in operation on all our waterways, it's a relatively little-known job. What's the main role of the Marine Detachment, Corporal?
Well, we do all the same type of work as you do on shore, break-ins, thefts. We also have Christian Island Indian Reserve, which is where we enforce the Highway Traffic Act over there. We have the Liquor Control Act to enforce, as well as the Small Vessels Act.
The small vessels, I guess, are becoming a growing, problem or job in these years.
It is. Every year, big increase.
But general police work, just on water.
That's all. We're just a different mode of transportation.
Our season at Midland Detachment, anyhow, it starts at the 1st of April. We usually start our maintenance work, and it continues on till, well, last year it was the middle of December.
So it's not just for the cottagers and the holidayers that you're...
Oh, no, it's, we patrol, like search and rescue. When the cottagers are not up here, we're checking their cottages, to see they haven't been broken into, and this is when your crime is committed, when there are no cottagers up at...
to look after the property.
That's right.
All of this work highly efficient, modern, effective, and visible. But on a quiet business street in a suburb of Toronto, in a discreet building, a much less visible but big and very important operation of the OPP, Special Services. CIB, the Criminal Investigation Branch, is here, working on homicides and other crimes from throughout the province. So is auto theft, a division that's a growing one. And in the offices where pictures are not taken, the anti-narcotics people, intelligence men, and the security force. Many of these operations involve province-wide criminal activities, from car-stealing rings through to dope. But it's from the Special Services Branch, too, that experts move out to help in major disasters. There was a great deal of coordination needed after the crash of an Air Canada DC-8 jetliner outside Toronto International Airport. And in 1973, a thorough study, including the building of large models, to discover the causes of the huge multi-vehicle crash on Highway 400, that major disaster that claimed 12 lives. Anti-rackets, the title speaks for itself. But the fight against counterfeiting, for instance, has become a much larger one in our modern society of credit cards and charge plates. In another location in downtown Toronto, the heart of it all, general headquarters of the Ontario Provincial Police. Every one of the hundreds of police cruisers and pieces of other equipment moves through these garages for the installation of special equipment and radios before going to a detachment in the field. And it's here that you can see more evidence of the complexities of police work in a modern society, where the keeping of files and statistics, cross-indexing of information, and the ability to dig that out, to correlate all that background, becomes of supreme importance in aiding an investigation, compiling the evidence, and helping a prosecution. From fingerprints to laundry marks, it's all here in this building. Data processing, card sorting, and computer readouts. They're all a very important part of every police worker and every constable's day-to-day life. Communications on a province-wide basis, the web that ties it all together. There are more than 1,200 civilians employed by the department over the province. they work with 3,978 provincial constables of all ranks. And it all adds up to much more than just traffic and accident work. This is a vital and major role of the Ontario Provincial Police. But on the day that he or she graduates as a new recruit from the Police College in Toronto, traffic is just part of the job facing a new provincial constable.
Repeat your several names and say after me. I do swear that I will well and truly serve Her Majesty the Queen in the office of Provincial Constable for the province of Ontario without favor or effect.
Provincial Constable Daniel Douglas, posted Waterdown.
And that
Provincial Constable Cheryl Baker, posted London.
I will cause the peace to be kept
Provincial Constable William Elderfield, posted Shelburne.
and prevent all offenses
Constable William Frechette, posted Walkerton.
of Her Majesty's subjects.
Constable Paul Head, posted Cayuga.
I continue to hold the said office
Constable Nancy Grossmith, posted Bracebridge.
to the best of my skill and knowledge.
Constable Paul Kwiatowski, posted Sioux Lookout. Constable George Morris, posted Nipigon.
So help me God.
Constable Vera Riwald, posted Kingston.